All right. So welcome everybody to the Self-Myofascial Release webinar. This will be 30 minutes, and the idea is I'll be going through a little bit about fascia and myofascial release for about 10 minutes here, and then following that, I'm going to go ahead and turn my camera on, and I'll be joined by my fitness partner here, Abby, and we'll be going through some of the more major muscle group common rolling techniques using a ball. If you don't have that ball, when we get there, you can follow along without one, kind of remember it as you go through it, and maybe even get one down the road, and we will go from there. All right, so let's go ahead and get going first here and talk a little bit about fascia. All right, so what is fascia? So fascia is connective tissue that forms a three-dimensional web that extends throughout the body. Now, the picture on the right there, I really wanted to put that in there because it really is like a spider web when we look at fascia, and it is hydrated. So that means that there is water that flows through the fascia. So rolling and water consumption actually do help when we're talking about myofascial release. So that's something to look at down the road. It's built up of elastin, collagen, and a ground substance, a matrix that helps all the connective tissue elements kind of get together. The one way to look at fascia is think of cutting into an orange. You'll see that membrane when you open up that orange peel that holds all that orange together, that white stuff. That's pretty much the closest thing you're going to see to a myofascial system inside your body. It's that fibrous tissue that's holding everything together. All right, so what is that purpose of the fascia when we look at fascia? So fascia provides structure and support throughout the body. It holds your muscles together, which allows them to contract and stretch, right? So this allows us to move as one unit instead of being robotic, where bicep curl would just go up and down and then we'd have to rotate. The fascia allows our body to move all as one. It provides this smooth surface as well for your muscles, joints, and organs to slide against each other without creating any friction or tears. The fascia stabilizes your body's structure and gives your body strength. So it's part of the muscular system that gives us that strength. It separates your muscles and eases muscle tension as well. So it's also a protectant. That's one of the things that we'll talk about. Its protective properties are what gets us into some of these painful sites, if you will. Just looking at it, at the full sense here, this little diagram just shows you that there's that superficial fascia that goes to the deep fascia. That's where that webbing happens, where it's connecting to the muscle. But basically what we're looking at here is the fascial system is literally invested in every system and structure in the body. And we get into myofascial. The reason we call it myofascial is because that muscle is investing in that fascia, so together they are the myofascial system. So that's kind of what we're looking at. This system is basically helping us do everything, and it's also a chain reaction, so we'll get into that as well. But the more we do with that chain reaction, the more we can see issues with fascia down the line of the body. We hurt something up in the shoulder, and we can see the ankles or the calves being affected. That's kind of what we're looking at when we talk about the purpose of fascia. It is, if we broke it down to some simplicity here, it is a protectant. So it protects the body from harm. It's going to kind of knot up, if you will. We'll talk about that in a second when we have injuries. And the second thing is this movement. It allows us to move freely. And that is a big thing for the human body. All right, so we talk about the purpose of fascia, we talk about what it is. Let's look at how it affects us. All right, I really love this, this chart here, because every single one of these skeletons are basically saying how my back is killing me. And we put it in that skeletal form so you can kind of see how that's affecting. Our bodies are similar in many ways. However, your shape, the way you live your life from each moment and each movement that you make affects your myofascial tension in your body. For instance, if you sit all day, this is going to cause shortening of the hip flexor psoas area, kind of like you see Mr. Yellow there on the far right. That's going to cause a pelvic tilt during upright movements. And so basically it's going to pull forward, pull your upper body forward, causing your lower back to tighten. So that's where we see the yellow in the front and then the yellow in the back. Now, let's take the opposite case. If we're working upright all day with our hands overhead all day, this causes shortening in the upper back and chest, which then pulls on the lats, again, causing the lower back to tighten. This would be the green fellow, the one right next to the yellow. So that is overhand, we're getting shoulder, we're getting up into the head and neck, and that's causing that lower back to be pulled. So there's a few different things that we could look at here, but the bottom line here is you may not fit the same root cause bucket, so you may not all be in the same root cause, but the result could really be the same when we look at low back pain or upper neck pain or shoulder pain, things like that. It all leads to the same chain link because, as we talked about before, the fascia is interlinked in the whole body. So that's something we want to look at as well. All right, so looking at that, I want to take just a moment to talk about muscle knots and trigger points. Now, a lot of us say I got a knot right here, my neck or my shoulder. These aren't actually knots per se. These are actually what we're talking about as myofascial trigger points. These are when the fascia builds up. This is what we talked about, the protection zone, if you will. The fascia will actually bundle up and protect the muscle because it thinks an injury happened. And a lot of times it could be a twist of the body. It could be how you're turning. It could be lifting too heavy. It's not like a muscle spasm or a Charlie horse or a cramp where you can't move the muscle. That's a muscle spasm, and that's where the muscle is injured or tightening up. This is where we just feel tightness. It's limiting our range of motion, or it's a little painful to lift our arm up or to reach over. These are usually what we call myofascial trigger points. Now, massage and body work can affect the fascia when there is pain and dysfunction in the body. Where there is adhesions, restrictions, or scarring with the fascia, this is that bundling that I was talking about, it'll transmit pain to the brain, basically telling us that there's something wrong. Now, this pain can be acute, or it could be chronic and last for days or even years. So some folks are just dealing with it for a couple of days. The myofascial bundles release because we're back to normal stuff and all is well. Sometimes they don't release because we're putting that same pressure on it. If we're sitting all the time, for instance, or if we're doing something consistent for the same time, they're never going to release because they're not telling the system that they can. So when we're looking at this, myofascial release uses moving and sustained holds of pressure that allow the body to move past this protection mode that I was talking about and allows the fascia to open up and realign naturally. One thing to note here is that the area of pain may not also be the trigger point. In most cases, the pain is referred from the trigger point. So you see where the X's are on that diagram compared to where the blue highlights are. Where they're feeling it is not always where the problem is. We see this a lot like in the neck. You have neck pain, but then we roll the upper back to mid back and the chest, and we actually find that we feel it come up through that neck because that's where the trigger point is. The myofascia is one big connected system. So it's like an accident on one end of the highway is jamming up all the way up to the other side of the highway. That's what we're looking at. So the signals get pushed to pain signals somewhere else sometimes. So that's kind of how fascia works and what we're looking at. And when we get a really big irritation, that's when we get that kind of metabolic crisis in the fascia, and that's where we really get just locked up muscles or really bad low back pain, things like that. So some of these are going to help us out there. All right, so I know that's a real quick walkthrough of fascia and the myofascial system. As we finish up here, what we're going to try to go into next is actually showing you how to relieve some of that tight myofascial bundles. If at any time you ever need any more information, you can always email the fitness center, fitness.center@rtx.com. I'll give you that again at the end. But I know it's a quick little walkthrough, but really I think the best way is to show. So that's where we're going to take a little bit more time to show what we're looking for here today. So some quick guidelines before we go live here and start working through this. You can use a foam roller, massage stick, tennis, lacrosse ball. They're all going to work. We've all seen the HyperIce guns. You'll see when I go live, we have a whole stack of HyperIce equipment. We have the guns, we have the foam rollers, all that stuff. and knowing where the trigger points are and knowing how to perform those. We're going to just use the easiest and simplest way, which is going to be the lacrosse ball. All right, so that's something we're going to look at. If you've noticed, I hate to use the word severe pain, but I would say severe discomfort, like it's really tight when you're pushing there. The goal would be to hold that position for about 5 to 15 seconds. This will allow us to push that text anymore. When it senses that, it senses the idea of releasing. So by pushing on that, it's actually going to release that bundle and get that body back to normal usage. But you could perform these on non-training days. You can perform these daily. There really is no restriction. I wouldn't roll 7 times a day, but if you did it twice a day, I think that would be a great thing. Once a day is fine. Once every other day is also great. When you can get in myofascial release, it's just going to help you out. Increase the intensity by applying more pressure. You can stack the legs on a foam roller. You can push the ball against the wall. We're going to go through that and roll in that full length of the muscle. Always recommend a static stretch after self-myofascial release because it is going, you already opened up that bundle, so now stretch out that muscle. That'll give you a little bit more flexibility in the long run. Okay, these are the 5 that we're going to be going through today. These are major muscle groups: chest, upper back. We're going to do a glute release, hip flexor psoas release, and then we're going to, if you're so inclined to take the shoes off, we're going to do a quick little plantar fascia release because plantar fasciitis is not a fun thing. All right, so give me 1 second here. We're just going to go live here, and we will get on video. I'll stop sharing and on video, and I think I have to look at it so I can spotlight this. All right, hopefully you can see me full, and you can see Abby here behind me. So welcome everybody. So I sent out a reminder for this. We got a lacrosse ball or a tennis ball. I have lacrosse balls here. The big difference with the tennis ball is going to be the tennis ball is going to have a little less density. It's going to have a little more give. So it is sometimes better for beginner, but you could just apply less pressure with the lacrosse ball. Honestly, either one is going to work fine. The lacrosse ball will give you, because it is higher density, it'll give you a starting point and an ending point, so you won't have to go from a tennis ball to lacrosse ball. So I always recommend the lacrosse ball to get us started. That's kind of what we're looking for. Okay, let's go ahead and get started with that chest roll. So with the chest roll, think about your clavicle bone. Your clavicle bone comes across, then make a triangle, all right down to the lower pec. So that triangle right there is what we're going to look to roll. All right, so I'll have Abby go ahead and grab that ball, and we're going to kind of both go through it, but she's going to go ahead and start that in the center of the chest, and she's just going to apply that pressure nice and easy along that chest. Now, there's a couple ways to increase this pressure, right? She's doing a nice easy one. She could bring that hand across and apply even more pressure with that ball. Now, big thing with rolling, we want to do small circles. We don't need to do this big circular area. We want to work through this area, but we don't want to make these big circles because we're going to lose our grip on the ball and we're not going to be able to apply pressure, and we're not going to be able to find some of these spots because we're doing too aggressively, over aggressively on the general area. Don't be afraid to move the ball. Find a different spot. You may find that right here is way more strenuous than over here. You may find down here. A lot of folks find closer to the shoulder is going to be a little tighter. So that's kind of what we're looking for with this. The goal with this is, I know it said earlier about 8 to 10 rolls. Let's make it easier. Let's say 30 seconds to a minute. You're going to sit there and roll on that chest. All right. The overall of doing all 5 of these is about 6 minutes, 5 to 6 minutes, not a long time. Most of these you can do them sitting at a desk. Most of them you can do from home because all you need is this. You can travel with this. You can do a lot of myofascial release with just the ball. Okay, so I want to show a different way. We're going to go ahead and turn the camera. I'm going to have Abby come over here because we're going to use a wall for this one. So if you don't feel like you're applying enough pressure, you can use a wall to apply that pressure. So she's going to put the ball right against here, and she's just going to apply that pressure through the wall. Notice how she steps back here with the legs. That allows her to lean into that, and this is going to add pressure to that lacrosse ball or tennis ball. So progressions, right? We start here, just sitting still, just rolling it out. And then as we feel less and less, we can progress to pushing against the wall. Now, the idea is if you hit a pain spot, right? Let's say she hit it right there. She's just going to apply a little more pressure and sit there. About 5 seconds. If you're going to feel that kind of muscle kind of relax, or you may feel it kind of give, if you will. You may even find it kind of go up the neck or down the shoulder. That's okay. We're not hurting anything by moving on the muscle. That is referred pain, like we were talking about before. That's the trigger point. You hit the trigger point, it sends it somewhere else. We're clearing out the highway. All right, so that's going to be our chest roll. The idea is 30 seconds to a minute on this side, 30 seconds to a minute on the left side, then we're good with the chest. All right, now the question that may be asked after is, when do I stretch if I do this? You can stretch directly after because it's rolled out, or you can wait and do all 5 and then do your stretches. It's not going to change a lot. You've released that fascia it usually lasts up to 30 minutes to a few days. It depends on how tight the fascial link is. So just, doing all first and then doing your stretches is going to be fine. Okay, let's talk about the upper back. So I'm going to have Abby just turn around. So what we're looking for on the upper back, I'm going to show you first and then show you how to do it for yourself, is if you did have a partner, you could, because what we're looking for is you have your scapula right here. We're looking for the lats. The lats are in here, and then we also have up in here for the traps. For the lats, what we're looking for is to run it right along that scapula. And then we can even get in down in here under the scapula, because that lat muscle is very big, and it's one of the muscles that locks up the most and really causes a lot of neck tension. So when we're rolling the lats, we can do up in the trap area, we can do under the thigh and under the scapula. Doing the scapula is not going to do you much good because that's a lot of just skin over bone. So really stay around the scapula. All right, now, let's say we want to do this ourselves. All right, so a couple things you can do. I have a towel here. You can also use a pillowcase, or you can use a small garbage bag, grocery bag, anything that'll work. So what you're going to do is you're going to take this ball and you're going to put it right in between that towel, and I'll have Abby show us. And then you're going to lift that towel right to where you want the ball to be. So let's say we want it at that start of that lat. She's just going to put it there. She's going to lean against it, walk her feet out just a little bit. She's got stability now. All right. And if you're really worried about falling, stagger your stance. All right. And this will also reduce the amount of pressure if you're staggered stance. And then what she's going to do is she's just going to roll around. She's going to move her body against the ball. So the ball's not going to roll anymore. She's rolling her body against the ball. And then all she has to do with the towel is if she needs to go lower, she's just going to sit up, reach it down a little lower, and then continue there. Now, again, I showed you that kind of back area. If you have a towel may not go as low as you want to, so the pillowcase may be a little bit better. The only thing I would say with the trash bags is they do make some noise. So if you're looking for a quieter version, probably the pillowcase. But the idea is to roll around. This one may be closer to a minute, minute and a half. Bigger muscle groups, right? The chest is smaller. We have that small triangle. With this one, we're talking about traps all the way down to the mid-back under that scapula. So that's what we're looking at when we talk about the back. All right, so we've covered the chest. We've covered the back. Let's move on next. I'm going to roll us right back around to the glute release. Now, I'm going to show you 2 different versions of the glute release on the chair. So we'll show you one and then a progression. So with the glutes, I'm going to have you turn around here, Abby, just to show. With the glutes, we have our glute medius coming on the side here, and then we have obviously the maximus, which is the biggest part of the glutes. We want to also attack the medius a little bit. So I'm going to show you how to attack that medius when we get there. So let's go ahead and start. You're going to start by sitting down. You're going to put the ball right where you want that ball to be. So start at the maximus. That's usually the easiest place because that's the biggest part of the muscle, and so you won't feel it as much. Now, you see she's got the leg lifted. That is just to apply less pressure, more pressure. She can put the foot down and she can lean into it. All right, make sure you have stable surfaces. And this is the same as the back. You're going to move your body around. Now, could we do this on the wall? Sure. It's just a matter of controlling it. When it's on the hard surface like this. Now, Abby's not getting as hard as padded chair, right? I would recommend this to be a harder chair or just to go to the ground. All right, we can show that as we do the psoas at the end. Now, let's talk about progression of this. We want to make sure that we get all of the glutes. So when we want to move this around, she's just going to move the ball, good, and move that body on the ball. Now, if she wants to move the ball, she puts it in a different spot, lifts up, puts it in a different spot. Now, let's say you've done this for a little bit, you're still not feeling as much, you want to get a little bit more intense. We can cross the leg, so she'll take her left leg, bring it over her right, and now she's tightened the piriformis, which is the muscle that goes through the glutes, and now she's going to feel a lot more intensity on that glute roll. And what this is doing, we talked about this in the very beginning, when we sit a lot or we stand too much, these tend to get shortened or these tend to get lengthened. And what that does is that pulls the pelvis. For exaggeration, I'm showing you, but then we're walking with this like kind of rolled over situation. What we want is we want to be upright animals. So this helps release that bundle and make sure that we can stand upright and make sure that we have no pain there. Now, when you first start, sometimes this is where the tennis ball comes in first. If it's really painful to a cross ball, you can go to a tennis ball. You can go to a softer type ball. They sell a lot, if you go on Amazon, a lot of different types of trigger balls for a lot of money. Tennis ball and lacrosse ball, a lot cheaper. So that's my recommendation. They work just as well. When we're doing this, again, this is like the back. It's probably going to take a minute or two because you're doing so much muscle area. All right. And like I talked about before, you want to get that lat, you want to get that glute medius, you kind of got to lean on the side a little bit like you saw her do earlier. This is easier to do on the ground. And some folks will find this easier to do on a foam roller. I still like using the ball because I can travel with the ball. Foam rollers aren't everywhere. So that's why I would refer to the ball on this one. All right, so that's our glute roll. That's going to be a really good one. It's going to be one of the ones that's the most effective. We'll feel the chest, we'll feel the back. Those are good for our postural muscles. Those are going to open us up. But that glute one is really going to bring you up back into that upright animal position we want to be. All right, let's talk about the flip side, the psoas hip flexors. These are an interesting one. They're uncomfortable. They're not always the best looking foam rolling exercise or myofascial release exercise, but they are effective. These are the small muscle groups that really shorten if we sit a lot. So when we sit a lot and then we try to get up real fast and go home or go to the gym or any of that stuff, our body's not responding. It's still pulling us down. Again, for exaggeration purposes, but deep down, that's what's happening. So when we're walking in this kind of format. So what we're going to do is you're going to find your hip bone, and your hip bone is that big protrusion, right? If we're looking here, Abby found it right away. Mine is up here as well. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take that ball and we're going to go about 2 finger space, if you will, from that hip bone, right? So straight down, and it's like an angle. So here's her hip bone. I'm going to take that 2 finger and then I'm going to go angled down. I'm not going to go across. I'm going to go down. Across is going to be hip flexor. We'll talk about that in a minute, but we want to get into that psoas. I'll give that back to you, Abby. And then from there, we're just going to apply pressure and roll it around in this area. This is going to feel unnatural. I'm going to give you that right now. It's going to feel a little weird. This is really important to open up that psoas hip flexor. As I was saying, this one, if we come up and down now, we would get that hip flexor. Hip flexor is a little higher, psoas is that one that comes down deep into the pelvis. And then we can go all the way in there. This is another one where you may have to investigate a little bit with the ball and say, that area feels fine, but I go here and this is really tender. This is going to go hand in hand with really opening up that glute hip complex, really getting us into that upright animal. Now, I want to show you before we get into the foot real quick. I'm going to have Abby lay down. And this is going to be a version that you can do laying down. So we're going to lay on our back, Abby. Yep. And then we're going to straighten the left leg. I'm using the left leg just so you all can see it. I'm going to keep the right leg up. The reason we do that is because if we straighten both, we have a tendency to arch our back, and we're doing the opposite of what we're trying to do. So keep this leg bent. Find that hip bone again and put that ball, same thing, on there, and then roll that around. Now, let's say you have a water bottle, you have anything, and I'm gonna actually grab Abby's water bottle just so you can see. I want to use things that you'd have at home. You can take this water bottle, put it right on top of that ball. Go ahead and keep the ball there. And now put one hand on the water bottle to lock it and one hand on top of the water bottle. Now you're gonna apply pressure down, same small circles. And this is in that same spot, right in that inside hip. This is going to be the best way to really, really get into those hip flexors so as rolling. All right, so that's going to be our hip flexor so as rolls. Excellent, excellent way to open it up. Okay, we're running a little tight on time, so we're going to get to the foot, to the plantar fascia. But before she gets up, I'm just going to show her. Go ahead and sit up for me. I want to just show that glute real quick. So if you're on the ground, this is the way you could do that glute. Same thing. Use your opposite leg to balance you and to push around, and just kind of work that glute there. And this is how you can get a little bit more on the side. So if you didn't want to go from the chair, you have a padded chair or a roller chair. This is the way to do that glute release. All right, awesome. Okay, so let's go ahead, and if you're so inclined to take your just one shoe off, we'll show one side of the foot today. What we're going to do is we're going to roll under the foot. All right, we're going to do a fascia roll. But what I'm going to have Abby do here real quick is go ahead and just come over here and just put your foot up like this. I just want to show the foot. Yeah, whatever way, yeah, you can put the knee down. All right, so what we're looking for on the foot here is the middle of the foot, right? That arch of the foot is going to be where we're looking to hit. The heel is going to be quite painful, but the arch is going to be something that we're looking to roll for that fascia. Okay, so one of the things we want to look at, go ahead and come down now, Abby. We're going to put that ball right under the foot. And you can do this two different ways. You can do this sitting on the couch at night. You could do this from this point of view and put that, you're going to get a lot less pressure. The standing, and always going to recommend, I'll give you that chair for balance, always recommend balance when we're doing this, because this allows us to alleviate or increase pressure on that foot. We're looking to go right in the middle of that arch, and we're going to go back and forth. We're also going to do small circles. All right, and these are going to create opening of that plantar fascia, which we get a lot of plantar fasciitis in our feet from sitting too much, from running too much, all different kinds of things. Daily versions of this are really, really helpful for that. All right. So one of the things you can do, I'll finish this on the foot, is you can do a heel press to where you put your toe all the way down and push on that heel. This is where most of the pain comes from plantar fasciitis. It's in the heel. And that's because when our plantar fascia is, and then our Achilles attaches down under, that's where the pull is. The pain is in the heel. I would do this press more with a tennis ball. I would make sure it's a low density ball, because it's not going to make it worse, but it just could cause a little bit more pain than you really need to be putting yourself through to try to alleviate that plantar fasciitis. But the biggest thing I do is that roll of the foot. Another fun trick is what we call a sitz bath. Put your feet in a warm bath with Epsom salt and Alka-Seltzer, believe it or not. Alka-Seltzer has aspirin in it, so when the Epsom salt kicks in, it opens up the pores, aspirin comes in. It helps just a little bit with alleviating some of that foot pain if you have consistent foot pain. So we got the sitz bath, we've got the good foot rolling, and I think we're going to be in good shape on that one. Awesome, awesome, awesome. So we've gone over 5 different techniques. Now, there are a ton of rolling techniques, of self-myofascial techniques. As I said earlier, we have different guns and balls and foam rollers, and we have vibrating foam rollers, and we have regular foam rollers. There's a lot of money into the myofascial release industry, but you can get away with just this. If you're interested in doing any assessing, so one of the things we can do is virtually we can assess and say, okay, let's see your movement patterns, because that can sometimes tell us why you're tight in certain areas and tell us where to attack a little bit more. If you're interested in doing any of those assessments, you can reach out to us at fitness.center@rtx.com. One of either myself or one of our fitness professionals will get back to you, and we'll try to set that up. As well as other techniques, we can work through a lot of techniques. I have the handout that I'm going to send out, as well as this recorded version. So I know somebody asked me that earlier. Everybody that participated, everybody that registered is going to get the handout for self-myofascial release. as well as the recorded version. So I will stay on for just a couple minutes to answer any immediate questions if you have any. But other than that, thank you so very much for joining me today. Use that ball. It's going to be great. It's going to help alleviate a lot of that tension. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a good one, everybody. You're so welcome. And let me know if you have any questions. I'm going to go ahead and stop recording, and then I can answer any of those.